Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Becoming Women podcast with me, your host, Ella Sims. My mission with this podcast is to support teenage girls as they navigate the ups and downs of growing up. In the next 8 episodes, I'll be speaking with an inspiring female guest and asking them what they learnt during their teenage years. This season, I'll be bringing you female specialists in activism, business owners, psychotherapy, mental health and well-being. By speaking with both professionals and inspiring independent women, each individual episode provides you with confidence, tools to handle any challenges you may face, and the reassurance that you are not alone and those tricky teenage years will pass. On this week's episode is Director of Teen Yoga Foundation, Charlotta Martinus. Charlotta is the world expert in yoga for teenagers and published her book on the topic last year to 5-star reviews and sold 1,000 copies in the first 6 months. She speaks on the BBC and writes for journals worldwide on the topic of yoga and teens. She founded the charity Teen Yoga Foundation, which exists to promote yoga for young people the world over, in 2003. She has trained over 1,000 students to teach therapeutic teen yoga. She works with the UK government to bring yoga into the curriculum and has also collaborated with BBC, Sport England and the European Union to research the benefits of yoga for young people. In this episode, Charlotta shares the benefits yoga can have for young people and her own journey with yoga. She shares so much wisdom and I really hope you enjoy the episode. Hi, Charlotta. It's really lovely and welcome to the Becoming Women podcast.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be speaking to you.
I wanted to speak to you first, if that's okay, about Teen Yoga Foundation. I know you founded that in 2003. How did this journey or that journey for you begin?
Oh, well, gosh. I was invited to, I had been a school teacher teaching French and languages at GCSE and A-level, and also younger ages too. And a friend of mine had a job teaching yoga in a local school, and she had to go off to Australia. And because I'd been a school teacher and I was a yoga teacher, she asked me to come and do the job for her. And I thought it would be very straightforward because I knew how to teach yoga and I knew how to teach young people. But it really wasn't. I made a lot of really grave mistakes which put people off yoga. So I kind of embarked on a journey of learning how to do this right. With the help of the young people, I kind of found my way to teaching yoga in a way that made more sense to them. That wasn't just me sharing my practice, but was more me sharing therapeutic aspects of yoga that could really help them in their lives. And that was a journey that incorporated school teachers, psychiatrists, doctors, psychologists, social workers, occupational therapists, and the teenagers themselves, and parents, of course, as well. Mm-hmm. And as I did this, it kind of became more and more popular, obviously, because I was actually getting it right finally after a few years of doing it wrong. And so eventually every school in Bath where I live was asking me to come and do the yoga at the schools, and I couldn't do it all. So I started teaching other people what I'd learnt, and we formed a team, a cooperative that went around and taught the yoga in the school. So that's how it all started. And actually, when I first started teaching in 2003, there weren't significant issues in schools. It was just a bit of fun, and it was just something kind of adding onto PE and wellness. But as I started teaching in more and more schools, the mental health issues started to grow and became more and more apparent. And I can't say exactly when, because it was kind of crept up on us. But eventually we realized that, oh, wow, there's actually a really severe mental health issue among young people, and yoga could address that. And we were ready for that because we had kind of grown to that degree that we then were able to share our knowledge with people that was evidence-based over years and years of practice that would help them support young people with mental health issues, very specific mental health issues like anxiety, low mood, bullying, isolation, and school refusals. So we kind of were in the right place at the right time to help a very large amount of young people, which is then Sport England came on board and saw what we were doing and started funding our work, which made it much easier for schools to bring us in, because then the funding was in place. And then they also asked us to start the This Girl Can campaign, bringing yoga into young people who were refusing PE. And that really kicked us off in 2012-13 with a really substantial amount of funding that helped us move forward with quite some speed and that then brought us to the EU, who offered us another big substantial pot of money to do a research project on the work that we were doing. So then now we have the evidence base and the experience. So there's been a kind of quite a slow burn but a very steady trajectory of offering more and more, initially both just here locally and then in the UK and then Europe and then worldwide. So it's just been an organic growth. It hasn't really I haven't really had a plan in my head. I've just kind of gone with what came my way, which is quite nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you had a passion for something, and you've done the research and you've just spent the time initiating it, and it's naturally grown from there. What do young people enjoy the most about it? What do you find when you're there working in schools and giving the lessons?
Yeah, just to pick up what you just said there, I mean, I have a passion. My passion is that young people find a way to be as well as they possibly can be and thrive. Like, that's, if I if you ask me what is my dream is for young people to thrive. And for me, yoga is such a great tool for that, because it's such a multiple tool, and it's such a broad tool that can apply to lots of different people. So yeah, my passion is for young people to thrive. So just wanted to put that in there. Yeah, I've forgotten what the question was. To ask me the question.
What do you find that young people enjoy the most when they're practicing yoga?
Okay, well, questions like that are difficult, aren't they? Because by the very nature of the question, we have to generalize. And having taught myself over, I think I worked it out that it must be about 100,000 teenagers in over the 17 years. I couldn't really generalize, because everybody's very different, and you can generalize in little groups. You can say there are the groups that really don't like PE, and then they're the really athletic groups, and they would like different things. But so the people who don't like PE, they love the relaxation. In fact, if you pushed me to say no one thing, it would be the relaxation. They all love the relaxation, but it takes a while for them to get there. They can't learn it straight away, because they have to do a bit of asana first before they get the relaxation. Otherwise they just find it boring. But yeah, relaxation.
I think even as an adult, you would find the same challenge there to relax. It does take a while to practice, to switch the mind off and to connect with completely. Your body.
It does. And I think for young people particularly, they live in a very connected world. They live in a world which is constantly demanding something of them to be present. Like, I mean, many of us are the same. We look at our phone first thing we wake up, we open our eyes, we look at our phone. Last thing before we go to bed, we look at our phone. We're connected outwards all the time. And that pressure really impacts their mental health, but also their general well-being and their characters going forward. And so the more they engage with the relaxation, the easier it is to disconnect from that world, from that kind of online connectedness. And I think that's really key for them to develop into thought leaders and leaders who are not just driven by the current status quo or the current zeitgeist, but have their own ideas about what's right and wrong and what's good and not good, and have their own compass north, if you like. And that can only happen if we disconnect from everything around us. If we're constantly connected with everything around us, all we can ever be is a product of our environment. But if we disconnect, then we can find new and creative ways of thinking and being. And I think that's really important for a different future for our planet and for our people, So that's why the relaxation is so important. And you'll get groups of young people from beginning of December through to mid-February saying, can we just do 45 minutes of relaxation? No asana, no breathing, nothing. And that's something which I often encourage my teachers to do, because I think, I think they're very driven. I think relaxation these days is Xbox or doing 15 different hobbies after school, or hanging out with friends. It's not proper relaxation. So that, I think that is something that can be very, very beneficial for them, and can resolve a whole load of mental health issues actually, and help people sleep better and just rest their immune system, rest their physical bodies, rest their minds. So it's a really, really key thing. It's not just about enjoyment, it's actually about a necessity.
The practice of yoga, it can have so many benefits, like you say, with improving your sleep. It's even just taking the time to focus on your breathing. That can be a useful tool that you can just practice
anywhere,
no matter where you are.
And that's, I mean, more and more, that's kind of what we try and do, is that try and teach them how to do things in their daily life. So it's not just a weekly practice. It's something that they can do in every morning where they wake up, or where they can do with their families in the evening, or they can do it on the bus. So we're trying as much as possible to bring them ideas that can be incorporated there in their whole day, every day. And that includes the philosophy. So the yoga philosophy is particularly important in that.
Yeah, not just teaching the practice, but the philosophy, like you say, around yoga. You not it in schools, but you also have online classes as well available for young people.
We do an online training course. My main focus at the moment is actually training professionals who are already in touch with young people, because I find that's much more effective than me reaching directly to the young people. Because by me training professionals who are working with young people, immediately on every single individual I'm teaching will teach 1,000 kids that year, so it's really, really effective way of doing it. That's what I do. I do an online training course for teachers, parents, OTs, social workers, nurses and doctors on how they can use yoga in their practice, in what they're already doing. And I think many of them are finding it a very useful tool, to like an add-on tool to their skill set. I also do in this particular time, of coronavirus, I do online classes for teens who are keen to connect with me. But that's a secondary thing to my actual training courses, which is my main focus now. But my graduates, I have 1,000 graduates, over 1,000 graduates. Most of them do online classes for teenagers that I mentor for them.
That's brilliant. And do you have a favourite yoga position or pose?
Well, to teach young people, it's the crow. Because the crow is a really fun thing to learn, and once you've learned it, it's a really great party piece, and it also builds your triceps and biceps and pectoral muscles. So for guys, they really love that kind of challenge of building their pectorals, and for girls, it's really beautiful, and it's really powerful and really strong, and it's quite impressive. And once you've learned it, you can just do it like forever, and you can build from crow into peacock into various other variations, handstands. So it's a really great starting posture, and fun and exciting, and very, very popular. Something they can teach their parents and their siblings as well.
And for you personally, do you like to go to
headstand? I always love the headstand. If I've only got a few minutes and I want to do some asana, I do the headstand. I do all the postures in the headstand. So I do all the. For me personally, it's always going to be the headstand, because the headstand for me is just so refreshing, and I can do quite a lot of postures in the headstand. So I can do the splits, and I can do forward bend, backward bend, twist, side bend. You can do it all in the headstand. So headstands for me.
And for young people who want to start practicing, and at the moment, obviously, everyone's based at home, what are the best things that they can do? Is it just look at a good resource online, or what would your advice be?
Well, actually, when this all started, almost immediately, we responded with a daily Zen challenge on our YouTube channel, which is called Yoga in Schools. So it's a yoga in schools. We got several channels, but we set this one up specifically for this. So if you go to YouTube and you put in the search bar Zen challenge, so hashtag Zen challenge yoga in schools, you'll find our channel. And there, every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, there's a lesson from one of our graduates and me on some asana, some breathing, so some postures, some breathing, a well-being tip. So it can be like, I don't know, how to massage your hands, or a creative thing, and then a challenge. So how to help somebody in isolation or help somebody in your family. And that's every day at 10 o'clock on weekdays, and that's going to carry on through to the summer. So that would be great. And they're different every day, and they're just like 45 minutes. So it's easy to do before breakfast, because we figured that most teenagers, if given half a chance, won't wake up till 10 o'clock. Now they don't have to be at school. So we figured they could do it before breakfast and have their breakfast after that. So that's a really, really great free resource populated by people who really know their stuff. Most of those people who are on there are school teachers, SENs, occupational therapists, nurses who've trained with me. So they're really highly qualified, and they all have DBS and insured and so on. So yeah, that's something I highly recommend. And you can then watch them recorded, but watch them in order, because they build on each other.
Okay, that's a really good tip. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And when did you start practicing yoga? Were you a child or a teenager, or did you come to it in adult life?
No, I came to it quite late, actually. I was pregnant, and I was 34, and my sister, who's a GP, basically told me off and said, you need to start taking care of yourself and do some yoga because you're pregnant. And I was very stressed out and very busy person. And I was like, no, I don't need that. I'm fine. And I started it, and I thought, oh, what's all this rubbish? It's all weird. But I had a wonderful teacher who really got me into it, and who's still my teacher today, actually. And so that's 20 years later, and colleague, we work together now, and it just changed my life. I, like so many people, it took me from being an anxious, worried, overly busy, super stressed out human being to being somebody who was very self-confident, chilled, focused, knew my own mind, believed in myself, and just mature person. It helped me become the best version of myself, and helped me achieve a lot of things, not for my sake, but for others' sake. And that feels so good, is to discover that thing of being of service to others in a really authentic way. And finding your purpose like that, it's just so satisfying. It just all kind of fell into place. As soon as I started yoga, it's like everything started to be a little bit easier, like my life seemed to fall into place somehow. Can't really explain it. I don't know why that is. Why does that happen? Maybe it's just we relax our attitude, so we don't look for stuff. We don't kind of wish we were somewhere else or wish we had different things. We're just happy with what we've got. I don't know. I can't tell you. But it's a magical thing.
Absolutely, and I think it's brilliant that you were introduced to it, and you practiced and you discovered it, and really felt like it connected with you, somewhere within you. And I think what you were just saying about how if you remove certain things, that you're able to come across something that is your purpose, and it's what you want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think as I'm speaking to you now, I'm kind of formulating it, and I think maybe that would be really useful for your younger listeners, is to think about that if they're wondering, because I know I certainly wondered for many years, what's my purpose? What does that mean? How do I know what my dharma is, the Sanskrit word is, like what my kind of purpose of life is. And I think it's just as you say, when you strip away other people's influence, when you discriminate between, okay, this is what the world thinks, my parents think, my friends think, but this is what I feel in myself. And then you start to discriminate between the two, and you can be with yourself and quietly more and more. The more you're with yourself in silence, the more you blossom and evolve in your own way, rather than in the way that other people want you to. And I think a lot of young people find being on their own quite frightening and difficult, and against the grain, because there's a lot of pressure to socialize, there's a lot of pressure to belong, to be part of groups, and that's not always helpful. I mean, I think it's really important for young people to develop in that way and like identify themselves with groups. You know, I notice that online particularly, it's fantastic now, wherever, even if you live really remotely, you can find a group that's you. You know, for example, if you discover that you're gay and you live in a village where there's no homosexuality at all, you can find an online group of people who feel the same way as you, and you can discuss it with them. So that's really nice to avoid kind of exclusion in your own physical community. That's important, but equally it's important to spend time by yourself and figure out like what's important to me, what is my kind of purpose in life, and you can only do that if you spend time by yourself. Yeah.
And also what you're saying there as well, it can happen at any time. So for you it was towards your mid-30s. I think for myself as well, it's my early 30s that I feel like I really discovered my purpose. And you can be a lot younger as well and have an understanding of who you are and what it is that you want to do. But it doesn't matter at which point that enters in your life, as long as you've got the gumption to go with it.
And it's about that. It's about courage. And I think you're right. And sometimes maybe it was like that for both of us, that, you know, our teenage years and 20s were times when we had to like belong and experience lots of experiences and try lots of things before we knew what to discard, right? And maybe, you know, we needed to go through that. I certainly did before I could find my purpose. And it's not something you have to find early on, but there are really good examples like Greta Thunberg, you know, the Swedish activist who, like, she knows her purpose right now already. And I think partly it's because of her autism actually that allows her to be different and allows her to celebrate her difference. And I think we could all learn from that, you know, and yoga helps us do that because it helps us relax ourselves and just listen to ourselves a bit. Yeah.
I think there is definitely a wave of young girls in particular, which is amazing, who are incredibly passionate about something. And even for me, for someone who's older, I definitely look to them for inspiration. What were your teenage years like? What kind of experiences did you have?
Wow, I often think about that, and I often wonder, you know, why am I so fascinated with teenagers, and why did I start doing this? I couldn't really give you a logical explanation, but I can tell you that from my perspective, I had the best teenage years ever. I mean, I went to a school where there were no exams, so there was no academic pressure at all. I went to a very small school. We cycled to school every day, so there's like fresh air and exercise every morning, going there and back. I had a very, very loving and supportive family, very creative parents, and a sister who I got on with really well. I didn't have many like close friends. I had difficulty with friendship. I had a few friends that like I liked, but they didn't like me, or, you know, one friend who I was kind of my friend for a few years, and then there was this quite bitchy thing, and I found friendship quite complicated in those years, and it took me to university before I really found good friends. But yeah, lots of experimenting, but nothing dangerous, you know, lots of boyfriends and lots of fun, lots of parties. I remember moments of being, you know, wonderful kind of midnight parties and on the beach, and motorbike rides through the night, you know, just really good fun. But I can also remember times of feeling very rejected and alienated, feeling like I didn't belong as well. So there were lots of very strong emotions, and we never had much money, so there was always that thing of like, well, you just may do, you know, it was me and my bike basically. And and I think but looking back, I'm happy about the experiences I had. I feel like it was a very, very creative period and a very important period to embrace fully. Yeah.
It sounds like that you had the freedom to explore those years and go out and do things that are exciting and to enjoy those with your friends. But as you say, it is a time where you do feel emotion at a very deep level, or it can even be at a very extreme level, no matter what it is.
Definitely. I mean, every time when we do the courses, the online courses, people share, so that's 1,000 people's stories I've heard now about, their teenage years. And I know there's way more than you would expect who've had severely disrupted teenage years through abuse, for example, various kinds of abuse. And that's something that it only comes to light because we would get so close to each other on these courses and people start telling the stories, and I realize how lucky I am that I didn't experience that, for example. But even those who have like just regular supported teenage years, all of us have had that experience of extreme emotions, like almost unbearable emotions of isolation, of alienation, of confusion. And these are kind of almost biologically set, through our hormonal changes and through our social tasks of rejecting our parents and finding a new way by ourselves, which is a social task of adolescence. So they're all normal and natural, and they can. Dan Siegel, who is one of our collaborators on the course, he's a very famous American neuroscientist. He says that adolescence is the essence of life. It's the essence of vitality. Like, if we can really embrace our adolescence in ourselves right now as adults as well, what we're embracing is all these emotions, creativity, belonging, a sense of like vitality. When we lose those elements that we associate with adolescence, we lose our vitality. We become really boring and kind of a bit dead in ourselves. So they are painful, but they're also the essence of life itself. And that's worth remembering when we're going through tough times, that actually, wow, I'm really living my life, and there is a sense of almost feeling immortal, isn't there? You feel like you're just going to live forever. You can try anything and do anything. You're not gonna die, and that's quite an incredible experience, because very soon we feel quite mortal. As soon as we have our own children, we're really aware of our mortality, I think.
I think what you've said there it's really insightful, and a reminder that the teenage years, you are at a period in your life where you do take risks, or you have more creativity, and to not be afraid of that. I think to explore it safely and taking care of yourself and others around you.
I think that's the thing, and that's what I want to do in these yoga. These yoga classes that we teach are much more than yoga. They're almost like life coaching. It's like, how do we harness those natural tendencies during adolescence in a way that's really going to help us make good choices. So like, it's natural to want to take risks, right? So what kind of risks are we going to take that is going to help us grow and help us move in the right direction? And it's natural to feel really creative at certain points in adolescence. So where does that go, to help build us as human beings? It's natural to want to reject our family and create our own community. So how do we do that in a good way? And make those elements of adolescence the engine towards becoming thought leaders of the future, because that's actually what's happening. That's the whole point of all that, is that as we become thought leaders of the future, because the young people are the leaders. They're the ones that are going to be looking after us when we're in our old age. So we need them to be wise. We need them to be making right choices, and we need them to be balanced. I have one of our patrons works very closely with number 10, and he's a yogi, a very famous yogi, and also an advisor to the government. And he said at one of our meetings, you have no idea how incredibly stressful it is in number 10. if we had leaders who actually were cool-headed and zen, we would be making much better decisions than we are right now, because these guys they're going from coffee to coffee, making kind of knee-jerk reactive decisions because they haven't mastered the relaxation response. They don't know what it is, so they have to just keep on acting and reacting. And it was a really important and quite a frightening point that he made, that if the leaders, literally our political leaders, but also other leaders, mastered the relaxation response, they would be making much more grounded decisions going forward. I mean, look at, I don't know if her name is pronounced Jacinda or Jacinda, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. But to me, she's an extraordinary example of a grounded, thoughtful human being, female, who seems to be making, good decisions based on a grounded sense, So so that's what I perceive. I perceive that young people could be much better than we've been in our generation at making good decisions.
So it makes the work that you're doing and the team that you work with all that more important, to keep reaching out and touching other people's lives and sharing the practice and the tools that they can have with yoga, and just keep going with it. And it will, it's already making a change, I'm sure, to other people's lives personally, but to keep going with the movement that you've got.
Thank you. Yes, there's a beautiful saying in the Upanishads that not every thought, but your thought, if it's repeated, becomes a habit, and your habits become a character, and your character becomes your destiny. So, if we can train our thoughts in a particular way from a young age, that will create a positive destiny. But if our thoughts are everywhere, then it can't. No, we are having a massive impact. And we've had some fantastic testimonials of young people whose lives have been turned around, despite really tough circumstances. Their yoga practice has made them leaders because it's allowed them to differentiate themselves from their families or from whatever's going on at home, and see the essence in themselves and drive themselves forward into a better future for themselves, ethically, morally, and just psychologically, So we know for sure that it's making a massive difference, and that's super exciting for me and for our whole team of people who've been working for years now on this. Yeah.
And I want to move on to my final two questions, if that's okay. I feel like we could keep going for ages. If you could advise anything to your younger self, what would it be?
Have the courage to be yourself completely, because you're beautiful. Have the courage to. The more you are yourself, the more beautiful you are. And it's what Oscar Wilde said, everyone else is taken anyway. So what's the point in being like anyone else? Just be yourself, because you are beautiful. And the more you are yourself, the easier it will be to find your path, the easier it will be to find your dharma, the more of a leader you will become in your own life. And the less painful your life will become, actually, because it's that adapting that is painful, the adapting to this and the adapting to that, things that don't feel right, those moments we feel like a square peg in a round hole. Just avoid those places. Don't do them. If you don't want to be at that party, don't go. It doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. Be brave, be courageous, be brave enough to be by yourself, spend time by yourself if that's what it takes, and be choosy with the people you hang out with. Don't just hang out with people because they're popular. That's not a good reason, and if there's nobody you like in your environment, that's fine. Spend your time with books, spend your time learning stuff, but be yourself. Don't compromise that. Say what you think and be who you are, because then you can develop more effectively and more consciously moving forward.
Yeah, they are very wise words, to not allow yourself to mold who you are,
exactly,
your soul, to anything else that you see or hear, or people try to make you believe you should be.
Exactly. And there's one really good, I mean, people used to say that to me when I was young, but I didn't quite understand what they meant. It felt like empty words to me. But there's one way which I've discovered recently, which I teach my young people, which is if you just sit quietly with yourself and take some really deep breaths and really ground yourself through your asana. So maybe it's after an asana practice and after a breathing practice, and you sit with yourself and you bow your head down and you ask your heart, what is your greatest desire? Heart, what is your greatest desire? And you just ask it 3 times and you sit quietly, and either an image or a feeling or a word will come up, and write that word down on a piece of paper. And then that can be your guiding light. And then you ask it again after a week or 2 weeks, and that will give you an understanding of what's going on inside you and what you need for yourself. And you know that what you need for yourself is within you. You don't need it from anybody else. You can create it for yourself. So if it's peace or connection, or you can create all those things for yourself. So that kind of independence and that kind of power and courage is really helpful, I think.
That's a wonderful exercise. Thank you for sharing that. And if you could give a gift to all teenage girls around the world, anything, what would it be?
Courage. It comes from the French word courage, which comes from the French word cœur, which is the heart. So when our heart is open and when we connect with the heart in the way that I just described, we have courage. And when we have courage, anything is possible. And there's no reason. We live in a time when women are more celebrated and more supported than ever before. You know, when I was growing up on the way to school, it was completely accepted that any man could whistle at me as I cycled past them just because I was a girl on a bicycle, you know, and we were completely objectified. All the girls learnt to type because everyone thought we would all become secretaries and there was nothing else for us to do. Now this is not the case. We're encouraging women to be whoever they want to be. So have the courage to step into that power. Have the courage to discard what's not right for you, whether that's marriage, whether it's kids, whether it's living in the country you live in, whether it's political bias. Just have the courage to discard what's not you, and have the courage to follow your heart and follow what feels good and feels right for you. And I think, and take the time to really feel into what that is, and don't follow the crowd. Then you'll become a leader in yourself, and you'll lead a very satisfying life, I think.
That's wonderful. So courage and walking through that door to invite it to yourself.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Charlotta, so much for speaking with me today.
It's been such a pleasure. Great questions.
Thank you so much for listening to Becoming Women with me, Ella Sims. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or visit www.becomingwomen.com. I'd love it if you could please share this podcast with anyone you know who would enjoy listening to it. And if you are a young girl, I'd love to hear your feedback on today's episode, so feel free to send me a DM. See you next week.